Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of dwraysgarage, where today I am in the great state of Wisconsin enjoying a 2018 GT3. That's a Porsche 911 GT3. It belongs to a friend of mine. I actually scouted this car for him after he found it online from a racetrack owner down in Scottsdale. So I wanted to get behind the wheel, show you some footage of this car, because who doesn't love these cars? That's so naughty. And wanted to give some driving impressions. It's going to be a crude review like most of mine are, given that it's more from the butt dyno than anything scientific in nature. But at the same time, I know that not everyone gets the rarefied ride of a GT3, so it was definitely something I was excited to take advantage of this week. At the same time, you're going to see some footage of his, I don't know the year, I'll call it 2016 BMW M4 that he did the European pickup of, and I was just driving that for the last hour, and that was a rock solid ride. Night and day in terms of what the two cars can do, but it's been fun, and you'll see some footage throughout here using the 360 of us driving through some of the beautiful farmland of the great Midwest here. I'll put the specs up on the screen because I don't actually have them on the tip of my tongue, but it is the 4-liter engine, the renewed engine from 2018, which was the first year it was put in. Gavin did opt for the Pdk transmission. So Gavin was telling me he chose the Pdk because, one, why not? It's such a telepathic transmission. And he was also describing how he was surprised how compliant it is around town, while at the same time you hit that sport button and all hell breaks loose. But at the same time, the accelerator and throttle inputs really determine how the transmission responds, which is obviously highly technical. A lot of cool computer and algorithms got into that. But the net result is it feels like the transmit change points or the gear change points that you might choose but never be able to execute as quickly as the car can. And the changes and shifts are lightning fast. And the main difference is the violence that exists in those shifts, depending whether you're in that get around town mode and how hard you are using the throttle pedal. So those throttle inputs are everything when it comes to the transmission. The ride itself here, I am on the softer setting, and it is a firm but compliant ride. I would definitely state it that way. I'm going to switch up into sport mode here so we can up the violence in case Gavin tries to pull away again. And certainly when it comes to the ride itself, the steering, it takes the smallest of inputs to make a turn, and so you must not look away. Looking away and for one split second can quite quickly turn into your turning. As I look out over the dash here at the front of the car, it is not dissimilar to Dennis's 9972 911 Carrera S. I can see about as much over the hood as I can in that car, so the visibility out the front is identical. The ride and the power is substantially different. The delivery of the power doesn't have that shunt effect, kind of where you hit the throttle and then you kind of get pushed, which was the Carrera S feel. The power is immediately available to you in this car, and while I may compare the front of the Carrera S, the activity in the back in the engine is quite a different experience altogether. And unsurprisingly, the GT3 is a power monster by comparison. So sitting in the cabin here, got a very standardized modern 911 layout, control system, 5-dial approach here that is very, which is synonymous with the 911 brand and model. You have the cavity in the back there, which unlike the regular 911s is not seated, so it's basically a shelf. And definitely there's room in here, and it's comfortable. And most importantly, and something that I would love to get in my Spider, these lightweight buckets are fantastic. And I'm surprised at how comfortable they are, especially for a big fellow like myself. So right now I'm passing through a little quaint town or village here in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, going 30 miles an hour. And the car is completely comfortable and it's completely compliant. And even on the more nicely paved roads, it just eats up the little push and pull that the road is giving. So extremely compliant that way. I do have the shocks set in the softer setting right now, and I do have the sport mode turned off. And yeah, you could definitely just cruise around like this. One of the things that Gavin mentioned earlier, and I think is inherent to all powerful cars these days, all the big powerful sports cars, is on the road, it is just extremely difficult to get these cars up to 8, 9, 10 tenths because their potential is so great and the risks on the public streets are so great. Your own danger, the danger to, running off the road, other people, etc. And so that was always one of the things that, while people kind of maybe turn their nose up at the Cayman Boxster family of cars, those are cars that you can, on a frequent basis, get to the 7, 8 tenths on a public road, not be ridiculously outside the law, and maintain control. And so that is it's a consideration. I think it's difficult to even embark upon a GT3 purchase unless you plan on doing GT3 type work with it, and that would probably mean some track work. I'm not saying you can't do that, but it would be very difficult to squeeze out the potential of the car and really know what fantastic engineering goes into this unless you can fully wring it out. Obviously, at some point here, I'm going to have to find a way to get the full scream of 9,000 RPM without blowing out the mic, so I'm going to have to figure that one out here over the weekend. So when you think about the visuals of this car, what we're looking at is a Nardo Gray paint to sample color. As you know, it seems that the Nardo Gray is a bit more prevalent in the Audi family, potentially where it originated. And so you've got this Nardo Gray, you've got this beautiful Alcantara, small, thin steering wheel, and it's got this delicious matte black finish, such a perfectly sized, comfortable steering wheel with no fuss, no muss, no crud, no buttons or anything like that. It's got the infotainment system here in the middle, but the steering wheel itself is dedicated to the driving experience and focused on one thing and one thing only, taking those apexes and crossing around these nice sweeping turns here. And I'm not sure if you can see my hands in the picture or not, but just like I mentioned before, minor inputs, massive turn. It's instant response in the steering, and I think it's still an electric rack. I'll have to check, unlike my hydraulic rack. But again, this is a lot of feel, a lot of feedback. So they've definitely dialed in the transition away from hydraulic steering. So I'm in Pdk Sport. I'm in the firmer setting here on a marginal road. It's nicely paved, but it's still not perfectly flat. And I'm doing 58 miles an hour in the 7th gear. But it still feels very calm. That might be the way to phrase it right now. So the car is comfortable at this pace. It's not going crazy. We're running about 2,400 RPMs. And it's just cruising along. And so my foot determines how aggressive and how angry that transmission will become. And so I think that's when you're thinking about, even though you don't have the manual engagement, the throttle now becomes a more significant input into your GT3 driving experience. Another comment that Gavin made earlier was how braking is fun. And I attribute that partially to the comment I made earlier as it relates to getting to 8, 9 tenths of a car's potential. It's generally not illegal to brake quickly, and because the braking in this does transfer similar G's to acceleration, if not greater, I think there's some of that sensation, and it's such a far above average braking experience. And I've yet to test that out, and so you'll probably see the scared look on my face when I do. But definitely very bitey and very sure is how Gavin described it. I'll let you know later what my experience of that is.
So we'll do a pretty aggressive stop here. So all good things come to an end, as we know, and so this was the end of my time in Gavin's GT3, at least until I can get back for Road America. So I hope those thoughts and insights were mildly entertaining to you and mildly interesting. And if you have any questions, comments, etc., please leave those down below. Otherwise, look forward to catching you on a video again soon. Be memorable, be well, and take good care. Stay well, everyone. Bye now.